Welcome to the Pursuit of Growth show, where we hold candid conversations with fascinating individuals from all walks of life to learn about their passions, successes, failures, lessons learned, and how they apply personal growth to their lives. I'm joined today by my co-host and great buddy, Greg Brinkley. What's up, Greg?
Man, so much is up, Sammy. And I think most importantly, what's up is we are joined by a very, very, very special guest, Joyce Morrison. Joyce, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing good. I'm excited to be talking to you guys tonight.
Yes, and I think we're excited. And this is a big moment for us because for the audience, you should know that Joyce is actually the first guest that we ever interviewed on the Pursuit of Growth show. However, that episode has just now been released, and we will tell you the backstory behind that shortly. But for those of you that haven't seen the first episode, Joyce is a Texas native who has hung her hat on entrepreneurship and building multiple businesses across multiple industries, being a community philanthropist for children, all while running the Texas International Pageant. So Joyce, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to catch up and chat with you today.
Me too. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Well, and like I mentioned, you have a very special relationship with the Pursuit of Growth as being our first guest. And we talked a little bit before we started recording this show that the first episode that we recorded together was actually about a year ago. It was in February of 2020. And at that time, we talked a lot about your childhood and the challenges that you faced growing up and how you transitioned that into an incredible career, how philanthropy became a major cornerstone of your life and the different things that you've done to help a variety of nonprofits throughout your life, including the organization that Sammy and I hold so near and dear, Vogel Alcove.
Yep.
And then we talked about Miss Texas International, which at the time you were the reigning Miss Texas International.
Yes.
And then it was interesting because we talked about our vision and our goals for 2020.
We did. I cannot wait to hear where we thought we were going in 2020.
I'm pretty sure we had plans that every month we're going to have a large get together with lots of people. We're going to go to concerts consistently.
Yes, we were going to have parties and galas and all kinds of things.
And I'm going to see my parents every weekend and hug them close as much as I can.
And the only masks we were going to wear were on Halloween. And
yes.
Yeah. And so then 2020 happened and March changed our world as the world encountered the COVID-19 pandemic. And so as a result of that, Sammy and I were not able to actually do in-person interviews. So this show actually started not virtually, not through Zoom, but we wanted to be face-to-face with our guests. And so that's why your first episode has been on hold for so long, because we actually recorded it as a podcast and not as a video. And so we've just now gotten to the point where we've kicked off now recording this show utilizing the technology of Zoom and recording things virtually. And now we're going to be uploading the audio from our first interview and putting that together to release, and couldn't be more excited about it. But all that being said, Joyce, we're going to kick things off today with a question for you. And it's a big question that you can take in a million different ways. But again, looking back at last year, 2020 was a challenge for everybody. And I think when you look in history, there's going to be several things that pop up: the global pandemic, racial unrest, economic turmoil, and arguably the most divisive presidential election of our lifetime. One thing that Sammy and I have consistently talked about, and Joyce, I think you share this outlook on life: when we encounter trials and challenges, it's opportunities for growth. So despite the major challenges that you personally face in 2020, can you share a little bit about what those challenges were and then how you grew from them into the point to where we find you today?
Sure. Yeah. I think, like you said, you could take it a lot of different ways on what 2020 made each of us realize, or, what we found out about ourselves or learned about ourselves. And I think one thing that was new to me, or a new thing to learn about myself, was I'm always on the go. Me and my husband are both always on the go. We're always traveling. We have multiple businesses that we're running, and we always have something going, separately from each other. And, that was just our lives. It's been our lives for the last 10 years. We've been on the go, and we have never had a point in our life where we were just sitting at home, just me and him, like enjoying each other's company and not having to worry about going absolutely anywhere or planning anything or managing anything at the moment. So I think it was really nice to learn that was also a content part of my life as well. I don't think we would have ever discovered that had we not all slowed down and learned to just be with ourselves, by ourselves, or with our significant other. And then learn to be content with that, or that you are still content with that life too. And I think that was nice to learn and experience last year, to look on the bright side of 2020.
That's a great point, is that so many people, I think it's like for better or worse, the rat race, but some people thrive and some people don't within that type of lifestyle. Yeah. And I think that it's very true to your nature. Like you just mentioned, I think Greg and I are both very much on the go type people. And I think it hit us pretty hard too. I mean, we were launching this business, we're launching the book. Had some big plans for 2020, and we're still, going through all of those now, but taking that time to have to really sit back and understand what we're doing and how we're going to shift and change like we have, where it's actually, honestly, I think made us a lot stronger just here in the last couple of months. We've gotten really good at a lot of different things that people weren't really good at. I mean, Zoom, for instance,
Yeah.
figuring it out.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think that we learned a lot with our business as well. If you haven't listened to the prior one, me and my husband have a medical distribution company, and we were fortunate to be in an industry that was still needed last year and that we were still able to operate. And we still had to learn to pivot though, because a lot of our business is elective surgeries, and those were halted for a little while. And, we had to find a different way to, keep revenue going, to keep paying our employees. And we were able to, jump into the PPE world since we were already in the medical distribution world. We had the contacts, and, I think a lot of people tried to get into the PPE world. And, you saw a lot of that coming through your Instagram. You could get all kinds of masks and all kinds of fun stuff. But it was nice for us to kind of just stay in the medical industry and sell between our contacts and sell to facilities, to doctors' offices and hospitals, and just still help in that community any way that we could, keep those customers happy in a different way.
And Joyce, I wanted to touch on this. When we talk about pivots and adaptations that companies made, first and foremost, I'm so grateful for the experiences that I witnessed from so many different companies that literally figured out how to continue to move forward. And they found ways to bring in revenue. They found ways to overcome obstacles. But one of the things that I think is really interesting is how they approach their employees. And I'd be interested to learn from you and your husband, what were some of the initiatives that you took to really try to alleviate the fear, the uncertainty of what was happening during 2020, and make sure that that part of your business didn't fall apart? Because without your employees, you have nothing that you're able to offer.
Yeah. We made it very clear up front that we had no intentions of letting anybody go. We were going to not get paid first, before we didn't pay any of our employees. We already have a small team in the sense of like W-2 employees. So we wanted them, one, to just feel safe in their job, so that they, one, didn't start, feeling slacking, or they needed to go find another hobby or a job or career or start their own business. We still wanted them to stay focused with SLR. So we wanted to also, give them that confidence that that wasn't going to happen. Like we were going to keep them on, and we were just going to figure out a way to do it. And thankfully there was programs such as the PPP loans and things like that we were able to apply for as a small business, which helped. So we were able to keep our employees going. And we kept things moving as normal, as a sense of we were still shipping out medical products, and whether it was surgical products or PPE products. So we were still moving forward as a medical distribution company. So in that sense, nothing changed. It just changed what was in the box. So we were fortunate that, our employees could continue to do that. And they felt confidence in us that we were just going to keep going.
Yeah, I think that's so important. At Vogel Alco, one of the things that we did right off the bat is we let our staff and our employees know that of our three major goals were that we were going to continue to bring in revenue. We were going to meet our goals. We were going to ensure that none of the families that we serve that are homeless are going to fall backwards in that cycle of their journey to get self-sufficient, independent. Yeah. And we're not going to let any staff go. And I think having that commitment and putting that straight forward to them was a real, I think, motivational tool that helped our culture really kind of like form together. Now, did your employees, you work in an industry where I guess you necessarily can't do what you do virtually. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we were considered an essential business still. So during the thick of it in March and April, we were doing one employee would switch off days. So we would always have one of our employees like in the office, and then Jerry and I were still going in. So it was minimal. We did shift a little bit, kind of in those beginning months. But then after that, we were able to get everybody back in the office, and continue, working surgeries, because surgeries came back after a couple of months in the beginning. And so we were back, continuing being an essential business and providing for hospitals.
What were some of the shifts in the product that you were shipping? I mean, I know that a lot of people changed to face mask. We kind of joked about that, right? Yeah. Everyone was making masks. But what was the highest demand, and what were some of the things you were asked to help ship?
So definitely the KN95s or the N95s were really hard to get and really hard to come by. So that was a challenge for Jerry and I, trying to navigate our connections. And I mean, there was so many people that would also reach out to us saying, hey, we could sell you KN95s and N95s, so we only wanted to work with people that we trusted and manufacturers that we knew the quality, and we knew like they weren't coming from, a chop shop somewhere that just decided to figure out how to make, masks because there's the pandemic. So a lot in the beginning, it was a lot of mask, and then it actually transitioned into gloves. So gloves are kind of the thing now, and they're hard to get. They're sold kind of in a very large quantity of pallets. So, there's a lot of doctor's offices and small clinics that aren't buying gloves by the pallet, so they can't get access to them. So we've been able to become that kind of that middleman and that distributor for smaller clinics and facilities with getting gloves. So we're taking the pallets, and we have the inventory, we have the operations where we can take the pallets and then distribute them individually when importers just don't have that ability. So we kind of found a niche between an importer and smaller business customer in the medical field that's needing these, or even restaurants and hotels that are needing these. So we were able to find a niche in that sense.
That's awesome. That's a great, that's true spirit of entrepreneurship right there. Like finding, what do they say? The riches are in the niches, right? But I know I saw something on, I guess, the news at one point in time that you solved a problem that was out there. And that was, the small dentist's office, the small doctor's office, they couldn't get their hands on any PPE at all.
Yeah.
So that's awesome, because I even thought to myself, I was like, wow, like, what do they do? Like they can't order by the boatload, literally,
Yeah. And a lot of them were having to reuse things, and which is, defeats the whole purpose of, having PPE and all that stuff. So it was a challenge, I think, for everybody. And it took us a little bit to just kind of figure it out and have people find us and find the channel, because we weren't normally a PPE distributor, so it's also getting our word out that, hey, we are a reputable company. We've been in business, 10 years. So, we're not just a pop-up Instagram face mask company. So it's also advertising and getting our word out. And we did a lot of interesting things. We did a lot of philanthropic things with masks too. We did a giveaway with the Harwood District, and we set up shop, SLR Medical, and we gave anybody that came by, we gave them a box of masks. For if you just couldn't get any, you couldn't find any, or you just couldn't afford any, like come by and get masks, come get whatever you need, hand sanitizers, masks, and we had it all out. So we were able to get word out that way as well, because we got a little bit of news coverage on that. So
I remember seeing that. Yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah. I applauded y'all a lot on Instagram.
Thank
you
you.
got a lot of these.
Thanks.
As you look for the coming months, Joyce, are you still seeing a big need for all those different items, the PPE items, the gloves, the mask, and the hand sanitizer?
Yeah, so there's definitely still need for that. And it's still a need that we're seeing in the smaller companies. Like I said before, they're still trying to find it, because even if they've gotten it from a previous company or another company other than us, and then they're still coming to us because that previous company has run out or they haven't got their next shipment, the people that are getting it and distributed are running out of it so fast that sometimes that customer coming back to order the second amount it's not available. So they're still trying to find it from another distributor somewhere else. So it's definitely still hard for businesses to find it, and there's still a need. I learned something really interesting about gloves during all this, and the nitrile gloves and how they're made, and why they're backed up is because they're actually made from tree sap that is caught from trees in Asia. So there's only so many trees and so much sap that falls in a day. So when the demand for those gloves went up, the trees didn't produce more sap, and the people couldn't get more sap. So it really created a shortage, which is just just a crazy kind of line of something you don't really think about. You just think, oh, we have glove factories and they just make gloves. It comes out of a machine, but it doesn't. It's made from trees. So there's only so much we have of that, and we're still trying to play catch up. And I think it's going to be affected, for another couple of years. I think just the catch up.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the supply chain like that too, to hear you even think about it, because you hear so much about the different things that are back ordered or on order, but then you go even further to the literal component from a tree is on back order, so
and then you're like, why? I guess that makes sense. Like, it's not just their machines aren't producing fast enough, it's the tree is just still at the same pace it's always been, even though we have been in the need 100 times more. So
well, Joyce, if you were to ask me a question and say, Greg, I'll give you $1 million if you answer this question correctly, do gloves come from trees? I would have said false, and then I would have gone to sleep very upset that I missed out on $1 million.
I don't think I would have got that either. If that was a question on like who wants to be a millionaire, I would have not picked tree sap. Like I just don't think I would have.
You would have phoned a friend, and we would have led you straight as well.
Joyce, I promise you, gloves. There's no wood in gloves, Joyce. No, not from a tree. You're good.
That's funny.
Wow. It's interesting you talk about the supply again. I had a meeting with Nebraska Furniture Mart over the summer in 2020. And one of the things they talked about was they were having a real hardship in accessing furniture because so many of their items were in those huge, box, what do you call them?
Shipping containers
that were stuck in the ports on the East Coast, West Coast, wherever it might be. And because the unions weren't able to work, all their furniture was just sitting there and they couldn't access it. And so they were just like, we literally had such a hard time just getting product to be able to sell. And I was just kind of curious, did you guys run into any of that type of supply issues with what happened in terms of the shutdown?
We did. Yeah. There were multiple times that our stuff was stuck in at the port, and there's nothing you could do about it. It was we had, promised all these customers, okay, they're coming in, they're on their way, they've arrived. Okay, we should have them to you in 5 days. And then we're like, where's the shipment? Where's it at? Why is it not coming? And it was frustrating. It was very frustrating. And I think you don't think about it, but it's not just the PPE. It's like you said, it's all things like furniture and lumber and just things that businesses need and use on a daily basis, all of this was just affected across the board. There was so much stuff getting stuck. We couldn't get, stuff from other countries and to come in, or even if it was already there, it was just, they were not releasing anything. But we definitely experienced that, and it was challenging.
Well, speaking of challenging, as you look at 2021 from a business standpoint, what are some of the goals that you have for the company, and perhaps maybe share some of the obstacles that you envision you may encounter, and any plans for how you're going to adapt this year as we continue to kind of sail through the fog of what will be 2021?
So, just looking ahead on 2021, I think we want to get back to the focus of our core business, which is the medical implant sales side. Mm-hmm. We are continuing the PPE, but we don't want that to be our focus this year as it was last year and it turned into. We still want to make sure that we keep our main focus of our business, and surgeries are going forward. So that is just that's the main focus, is to try to definitely grow from 2020, which is, not going to be that hard, right? I think everybody went low. We're all going to hop up a little bit, we hope, in 2021 when things, slightly get back to normal a little bit. So that's really our goal. And the challenges, I think, I think we'll still see a little bit of challenges with the PPE a little bit. It's still new to us. I mean, it's not cool. We're not even quite a year into it. So we're still a new business, a division in that sense. So we're still learning, because the economies of scale with the PPE situation is moving on a daily basis. So we have to be very careful and watch when and what we're buying and at what price, because, gloves may be a certain price today, but, who knows, like another tree sap farm popped up that nobody really knew about, and now they're supplying all this. So now it's like, oh, well, I can just get these gloves here and these are coming in. So pricing and just the economies of scales and the need is just, it's very finicky with PPE. So that's something we have to be very, very careful and cautious of.
Well, I see now there's a big push on a lot of the national news media to double mask. So maybe you'll have an opportunity to sell even more masks, as we're being encouraged to wear two. So,
two masks, yeah.
There you go. There's an opportunity.
I did hear that. Hey, you know where to find them.
That's a good point, right?
Just email me. If you want to, I got you.
I love what Sammy said. The riches are in the niches. Double mask. There you go. Go to Joyce Morrison.
Come on, we got them.
That's right. That's awesome. Well, I think that's fascinating. I love the fact that y'all just know your business inside and out. You just speak so intelligently about everything economies of scale, the fact that you can tell you're so deeply entrenched in the business, which I found that out about you going back to our first interview and going back to our friendship, is that you've always been that way, even with your philanthropic efforts when you were part of our young professional group. So I wanted to pivot the conversation a little bit into another thing that I see you've really dove into and you're really putting your stamp on, and that's Mrs. Texas International. That's you were the reigning Mrs. Texas International. And so I wanted to give you this time and have you tell us a little bit more about the platform, and then tell us a little bit about what that is.
Yep. So that's right. When we last talked in February, I was still the reigning Mrs. Texas. And I carried that title through some extensions and COVID and all that stuff until June. So I'm probably the longest reigning Mrs. Texas there was.
Nice.
Yes.
So, kind of to explain the pageant a little bit, I've had to repeat what I said on the first one, but I grew up doing pageants. I did my first one when I was 3 years old, and continued as a married woman and won the Mrs. Texas International title. And what I love about the international system is it's heavily platform based, and it focuses on women in their community and their education. It's not just, about getting on stage and looking pretty. 50% of the international score is based on your interview and platform work. So you're not going to scoot by with a pretty face in this system, you kind of got to be a triple threat. You know what I mean? So, and that's what I've really appreciated, the focus on, such huge focus on platform. And I've loved the international system. It was introduced to me back in 2010. So over 10 years ago, and it kind of stayed apart, and I finally won. And I honestly, if you guys look back and at the last podcast, and when we talked about what we were thinking was going to happen and what our goals were for 2020, I can guarantee you I did not say it was to be the director of and owner of the Texas International Pageant. Not that I didn't think that I would want to do that someday, because I did. 2020 was just really crazy. It just really, the opportunity presented itself, and things happen for a reason. So I'm on the journey. I was offered to purchase and take over the Texas International Pageant as the executive director. And I am learning so much about another side of the industry and pageant that I haven't been on. I've always been on the contestant side. So I've taken on something that I'm learning and growing from, and I'm putting on my first production. So it's exciting, and I'm learning a lot, and I love it. And I'm excited to continue, using, like, not my title platform, but using now my director platform to continue to help women in Texas show their community and their education, and share my advice and give them a platform and a stage to do what I did.
I love that. And while you were the reigning Miss Texas International, you did a lot
Did I lose you guys?
No, can you hear us? Hello.
We're still here.
Are we there?
Uh-oh, do we have our first technical challenge with Joyce?
Oh, is it my Wi-Fi?
Can you hear us?
We can hear you, but you're frozen. So just FYI, we're talking.
Oh, you're back. Okay.
Oh, there, we got it.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what happened.
That's all right.
Yes. So did y'all catch the end of that? Okay.
Well, we did. Okay. And then I honestly, I had a lot of disagreements with what you just said. And I went on a rant about just being curious about what you're doing, but you missed
How
it.
How could you?
Right. I lost it.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. But what I started to speak before we froze up was, while you were Miss Texas International, you did a lot of work with Vogel Alcove. You still do a lot of work with Vogel Alcove. And it was really cool for me to see how you used your platform to raise awareness, to get more people engaged in our mission, and not just knowing what we did, but actually getting people to actually put effort into the things that we needed help with. And I think that's what's really cool about the pageant, and the women that participate in it. They have passions, they have things that are important in their communities, and they're actually, it's not just checking a box and saying you're doing something, it's really making a difference. It was really, really cool for me to experience. And so tell us a little bit more about when the pageant is going to occur this year, where it's going to happen, and then honestly, how are you pulling this off during a global pandemic?
With 5 months in a pandemic, yes, I know. So the pageant is happening March 6th and 7th. The actual pageant will be March 7th in the evening, and we are hosting it for the first time in Frisco at the Omni Frisco at the Star. I'm very excited to just bring a new venue and a new experience to the girls of Texas as the new director. And, with all things said in COVID, we are, thankfully, I have a PPE company.
Nice. Funny how that works.
Funny how that worked. So I'm going to continue, I've been watching other systems and, USA and those systems and how they're handling COVID as well. So I'm watching other pageants with the systems that have decided to host their pageants and continue on. So, they're just limiting, and they're making girls, wear masks and social distance, and opening numbers are looking a lot different this year and last year. They're, we're doing them in sections, like only 5 girls come out and do a little number. And then, we're just keeping it as socially distanced as possible, and, having SLR and have them helping consult with the pageant to make sure that we're COVID compliant is really helpful. So, there obviously are, PPE sponsor. Who would have thought you would need a PPE sponsor for a pageant? But we have that now. So they're helping with all of that. And we're going on, we're moving on. I've kind of had my motto now, it's mask on and move on. We can't keep sitting in our houses and, not doing anything. And so I think we're on the transition phase where we're able to kind of get in a place where we can go to an event and just be cognizant and aware of our social distance and wearing our mask and just being responsible human beings in a different sense.
Yeah. One of the things that there's obviously so many moving parts when it comes to just throwing in any type of event. And, you've got event experience. Greg and I have event experience. So we know what it all takes. But when you step into this new role, like now you're here, like you're no longer the participant. What was something that maybe stood out to you when you shifted from that participant over to the director? Like, what was there anything that caught you by surprise, or like you're like, whoa, I never even had to, thought about considering something like this?
I think overall it was just, you always have an idea of how something is behind the scenes, for anything. And then when you finally get behind the curtain, there are so many things to learn and, so many things you didn't think about that you have to do. And something specific is slipping my mind, but I think just overall, and I've had such a short time frame to do this because I purchased the pageant in September. And, first effort that whole month was just finding a venue before I could even start recruiting or even planning any type of event. So, I was down to 5 months at that point in planning and recruiting and everything. So I've been trying to give myself grace because I am an Enneagram 1 and I don't like to give myself grace. So I've been trying to this year with a short amount of time and just saying, it is what it is. It was the 5 months I got to plan, and I'll learn, and I'll keep continuing to learn every year that, I put the pageant on. I know there's going to be new things to learn and things will happen, and you just got to keep, looking at it as a learning experience.
Do you have a vision of where you would like to take the pageant, or where you see it becoming in the future?
Yeah, I do. I think the Texas pageant, I would say about 15 to 20 years ago, there was upwards of 100 contestants competing. And I want to get it back to, a large format pageant. And the last few years, it's been about 30-40% of that. And I just want to come up with new ways to help more contestants get in, because if you're not familiar with the pageant industry, it is an expensive sport, and it is, you don't account for all the things: coaching, entry fees, headshots, wardrobe. It all adds up and it's a lot. So I have been in communication with some colleagues of mine that I've worked with to kind of bring a new type of scholarship system to the pageant. I know some do that as a prize if you were to win. But I want to make it more accessible in that sense for contestants to even be able to get on a stage and share their platform at a state level. And they can't afford it. I want to make it possible. So I definitely want to change it in that sense and offer some type of, annual scholarship for a few girls. And it's in the works. I don't know if it's definitely not happening this year, but maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, I definitely want to have a program like that, just to open it up to more people and make it more affordable.
Yeah, that's definitely something it sounds really unique. I know, and the fact that you're giving back and you're helping the whole way, I think just fits the mantra of what you just mentioned, was that it's not just about being that face on the stage. It's like about having depth and breadth. And so, I think that's really cool that you're able to help those people, especially get on a platform and be able to share their story.
Yeah, I truly feel like there are just some girls out there that are, a perfect candidate, or, they do so much work and they have a platform and they want to share it. And a pageant is a great way to do that. But some have the barrier of entry of finances. And, I want to change that and give them a platform to where they can, get help, so somebody can give them a platform to share what they're doing with their lives. And, that could help them skyrocket into, different opportunities that they normally wouldn't have had.
And Joyce, as we're now, I guess, just a few months away from the pageant taking place.
Or 4 weeks.
Oh, it's 4 weeks. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So
it's close.
Let's narrow that. How can people support the pageant and get involved?
So we're a month away. I am doing in-person viewing. So I would love your support in coming to the pageant and watching the pageant. Our seating will all be socially distant. So, we'll be following all COVID protocols as well. So coming to see the pageant on March 7th would be super helpful. And then for future, I am absolutely open to learning about different companies or businesses that would like to partner in sponsorship, or have some ideas of how they want to partnership with a pageant, or just get into the pageant industry. I've used a little bit of my network and gotten new businesses into the pageant industry who, I was talking to my photographer today, and she was like, Joyce, I just never thought in my entire life I was going to be taking photos for pageant girls. And now I have a little bit of a side pageant business. I'm getting clients from, the pictures I took for your queens and things like that. So, the pageant industry and the pageant world is its own kind of animal and monster. And if you have a desire to break into that industry, or you think your business would benefit from being a part of a pageant, like, reach out. I would love to chat about 2022.
Very cool. And, I've got some ideas that we can talk about offline after we're finished with the show. Maybe some companies and some people that I can introduce you to. I'd be happy to do that. So
you guys are always so good about that, especially introducing us to our media sponsor, Lifestyle Frisco. So that was very helpful, and I appreciate that.
Good. Glad that worked out. We love those people over at Lifestyle Frisco. They've helped us out as well. So I think we're going to transition into a topic that we are all three pretty aligned on, as being something it's super cool, something that I know for Greg and myself, we're just dipping our toes in the water. So we've definitely got some, we need to ramp up our experience to get up to your level. But we want to talk a little bit about your travel and your travel escapades and learn a little bit more. So Greg, I know that you had a couple of good questions there that you wanted to start off with.
Yeah,
but I think
travel, my favorite thing to talk about. Let's do it.
So one of the things that we mentioned when we first we recorded our first podcast, when we finished, was, gosh, we didn't even get into traveling like we wanted to.
Yeah.
Because I think the three of us all agree that traveling is more than fun. Traveling is a learning opportunity. It's a growth opportunity, and it just expands your perspective on life. There's so much value that you get from traveling. And here shortly, Sammy and I can share a story of just a trip we took recently that was just a road trip about 90 miles down the road, and the impact that it had on our lives of just going somewhere new, experiencing new opportunities, meeting new people. It's incredible. And just to start things off, I would love to just ask you, of the places that you've been throughout the world, do you have three favorite destinations that you've experienced?
Yes, I do. I get asked this question all the time. And another question I get asked is, I'm traveling here. I saw you went here. Can you please tell me where and what I need to do?
Yes.
Which in turn led me to start my blog, Wanderlust Wifey, because I kept, regurgitating the same things like, yes, I was here. Then I would like copy and paste or an edit. So I just decided to put everything in one place. So to answer your question, I do have three favorites. I always just get asked my favorite, which I think is harder, but
we like to push you to go with three. We're going to make you work for it.
So I already know them. So Marrakech, Morocco was one that I was so surprised by. I had an idea in my head of what it was going to be and how it was going to be from what I saw on Instagram and just what I had researched. And it just blew me away. I cannot wait to go back. You're in the middle of a desert, surrounded by snow-capped mountains. And there's there's the old city that's surrounded by the red wall in Marrakech. And then there's a new city that's like got clubs and like you're in Miami and restaurants and lounges, and it's like the best of both worlds. You get so much culture there, and then you still can go and like feel like you're hanging out in, you know, like a little metropolitan city. So it was just really cool to experience both of those, because usually when you go to a place like that, you're not like, I had been to Sri Lanka, and that was very much like a cultural trip that we took. Just learning about Sri Lanka and seeing the heritage sites and things like that. There wasn't really any like nightlife or, you know, crazy, you know, restaurants you had to go that were off resort. So, but Marrakech pleasantly surprised me. So that's one of my favorite places that we traveled. And my second one I would have to say is Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Everything there is just opulent. So you go to a restaurant and they're like, would you like the regular menu or the 24 karat gold menu? And you're like, well, I'm on vacation, I would like the 24 karat gold menu. And then you realize like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't be buying this because this is really excessive. And then you just go with the sprinkled, you know, 24 karat sweet potato fries, which were delicious. But of course you take the mini, of course you take the 24, but that's everything in Dubai. Everything is just over the top, excessive,
right?
The Burj Khalifa, the skiing indoors, just the fountains, it's just, everything is just over the top. You walk into palaces and they're just lined in marble and gold. And you're just like, how? You know, like
where am I, right?
Where am I? Like it's just crazy. And it's crazy to kind of live in that you know, that world for a little bit while you're traveling there and just kind of feel like, oh, so fancy, you know.
And I know everything there in Dubai just makes for a great photo. I mean, I'm obsessed with that area of the world, but it's just from the technology to the opulence to the old versus new, you know, it's so different.
And I'm so bummed because you say pictures, and we had went there on our wedding moon, and and this was before I started the blog, and I wasn't in that like blogger mentality. I wasn't like a content creator back then. So I have so little photos of us in Dubai and cool photos. So I'm like, I have to go back. I was like, Jerry, we have to go back now that I like know how to make content and like can take photos and I can add them to my blog. So stay tuned. Whenever the world opens up again.
Just tell Jerry that trials are opportunities, and we have a major trial. We don't have good pictures from Dubai. We've got to go back. I know, that's our opportunity, right?
Give the people what they want. They want the Dubai pictures.
For sure.
So that one, and then I had two beach favorites. The Maldives, you know, that was kind of a once in a lifetime kind of trip, and the water there is just as you see it. It's unbelievable. It's incredible. And my favorite closer version of the Maldives is Turks and Caicos. So we go there often, and we try to go there. We were just there in November. And it was amazing. It was so nice to get away and just chill out for a little bit at the beach and just stare at the ocean.
Gosh, that sounds so relaxing right now. Just, you know, I think everybody took that turn there towards the end of summer. It's like, I've just got to get out of here.
It was like, we got to go somewhere, whether we're driving or whether we're like, we ended up kind of doing a nature park trip. Like everybody was doing, like, you know, going out to the national parks. And so we went out to the Grand Canyon and, you know, saw all that in Sedona and enjoyed the great outdoors over the summer, because we were the same. We were like, okay, especially me. I was like, listen, we got to figure out, I don't know, we got to go somewhere. I was like, just stand in the middle of Grand Canyon or something with nobody around. Like, I was like, we got to figure something out.
Put on all the PPE and let's go.
Let's go.
So Joyce, you mentioned earlier that people tend to ask you a lot of questions about best tips. What are suggestions in terms of when I'm traveling? You know, what are the best practices that I can do? Yeah. I'm curious, do you personally have any travel horror stories? Have you had a trip or an experience where just things went horribly wrong?
So a little bit. Yeah, we have a day. So as I mentioned, we went to Sri Lanka, and this was also a part of our Wedding Moon tour. And so Sri Lanka, you really got to have some things planned out, because they don't, you got to have your drivers and your transportation, because they don't really speak English. I mean, some do, like in the resorts, but you get off the resort and you got to have things, not nailed down.
You got to be buttoned up, right?
Yeah, it's got to be buttoned up. So I'm a planner, had everything planned. Everything was great. We went to our first resort, got there at night, next day, enjoyed it. And then we were going to the next resort the next day. So the third day that we were in Sri Lanka. And so as soon as we leave the resort with a driver that does not speak English, but he knew where we were going, the hotel told him where we were going. And so imagine this, we've got all our luggage. We're in this, we are in this van that's like an 80s van. Like, it's got recliners and curtains in it. Like, I mean, it was very comfortable, but it was just very like a time warp, right? So we're like, okay, so I've got my wedding dress, we've got our luggage. I mean, we're out for almost 4 months on this trip. So, okay, so we're all piled up and we're going, and he gets a phone call on the way there, and it's not in English, so we don't know. And he pulls over. We were headed to our plane. We were taking a small plane to head to the south of Sri Lanka, because the drive would have been like, I don't know, 7 hours or 6 hours or something. So it would have just cut our whole day. So we're like, we were taking a plane to the next resort. And so he stops on the side of the road halfway there, and he's like, nope. And we're like,
you're like, yes.
No. You're like, the plane. We're like, plane. Like, we're going to the plane. Like, he's like, no. So we're like, oh my God. I'm like, what do we do? I'm like, okay. Like, I was like, he doesn't communicate. So we're like asking people on the side of the road in Sri Lanka. Like, this is, I mean, in this part of the area, central Sri Lanka. So it was very just the third world. Like, there was just, it wasn't, nobody was speaking. There was no translators there. So we call the hotel, and we're trying to figure out translation and, where, like, why he was stopping, where he's going. So long story short, he got a phone call from the plane, which, okay, I guess the hotel gave the plane company the taxi driver's number. Maybe, I don't know. So apparently the plane was broke. So there was going to be no plane happening.
Okay.
So he was just going to drop us off on the side of the road. Like, there was no problem solving going on in Sri Lanka. Like, it was like, oh, sorry, your plan is done. So bye. And we were like, no. And like, Jerry's getting a little frustrated. Like, we have our luggage. Like, where are we going to go? We're in the middle of Sri Lanka. Like, our cell phones don't even work. We have no Wi-Fi. And we're translating between the hotel. The hotel's translating to him. We're like, how do we get to our resort? So we basically, after a little bit of heated discussions, he did not want to have anything to do with us, because I think we were both getting frustrated at each other because of the language barrier. I mean, there was a point where we were standing on the side of the road, and he was like, get out of the car.
Oh my gosh.
So after about an hour of that, the hotel guy Jerry was like, I will give you like $400, $500. Like, will you get us back in the car and drive us the 6 hours to the resort? So
oh my God.
We drove 6 hours to the resort in our reclining 80s minivan, pulled the curtains back, and we were just, enjoying the Sri Lanka scenery. So it didn't always go as planned, but we were good. We just kind of learned to just laugh it off and just be like, wasn't that something? Like, we were about to be left on the side of the road, like in central Sri Lanka. Like, they just got out of a civil war not too long ago. So that would have been pretty crazy. So I think that was kind of we were kind of scared. We were scared a little bit for a second, like that we were going to get left. And it was pretty scary, but we ended up at a resort safe, like 10 hours later.
Yeah, anyone that's ever been in a foreign country, the minute that one thing doesn't go as planned, it is so easy to just get frozen with fear of like, oh my gosh, I have no support system if these things don't work out right.
Yeah, or phone, or I mean, it was like we were a little terrified. Like Jerry's like, what do I have to do? Like, how do we get in the van and you drive us all the way down there? And I don't know, it worked out. His persuasion, it works.
Wow. Well, I mean, I think whenever you have trips like that, you mentioned you're like a planner, you're getting things in order. Obviously things can go wrong, planes can break.
Yes.
But what are some of the best practices or tips or things that you tell people that are maybe taking that first trip or that second trip, or maybe going outside of their comfort zone, like maybe they're going to a foreign country? What are some of the things that you've taken with you that have helped, and what do you tell other people?
I would say don't listen to everything you Google and articles about places that you travel. I think, as an example, one of the misconceptions about when we traveled to Dubai was that Americans needed to come very modest and dress as if, they were a part of the culture that Dubai practices. And that is widespread all over the internet. I mean, it's like, you just need to be modest and everything. And that is not the case. So I would, they understand you're American, like you have American clothes, like, it's just it's an expat city. There's people from all over the world there. So I think that's a misconception that people, I get asked that question so much, was like, oh my gosh, what did you wear when you were in Dubai? And I was like, I wore my normal clothes that I wear in Dallas. I was like, I'm just whatever, unless you're going into a temple, it's all good. So I would always say, try to find somebody that's actually been there. Don't try to get all your information from Google, because that can take you in 7 different directions. And, sometimes people use a travel agent, which helps. I plan all my trips, and I kind of like to gather information in my own way and reach out to people that have been places and things like that. So that's my tip, is just try to find somebody, that's been somewhere, been there, to get a firsthand account.
That's great advice. Yeah. Taking notes, actually.
One of the things, Joyce, that Sammy and I share in common, of the many things, is we don't watch a lot of TV. We, I guess, tend to watch quite a few movies, but we're not huge TV watchers. But there's one show over the past decade that we both agree is perhaps our all-time favorite show. And there's actually several iterations of it, but it's Anthony Bourdain. And most recently, it was Parts Unknown that he had on CNN. And I can't imagine anybody listening isn't familiar with Anthony Bourdain, but it was a travel show where he would go to just places all around the world.
Off the beaten path.
Off the beaten path. And what was so special about his show is it wasn't just about the destination and the place that he traveled, but it was about the people and the cultures. And he used his love of food and travel to really kind of share people that we're not so different. And the differences that we do have, we should celebrate, as opposed to, be fearful of, or to be, to be angry about or whatnot.
Yeah.
So you love to travel.
Yeah.
You have an incredible, engaging personality. You have experience being in front of the camera. Have you personally, Joyce, ever thought that one day you could have your own travel show?
I actually have thought about that. Jerry and I have talked about that. Never say never, right? I have absolutely thought about that. I would love to host a travel show, and I feel like I need a few more years of experience under my belt. I need to go to a few more places and really, just get an idea of more cultures around the world, and have that in my back pocket and be an experienced host. And I would absolutely explore that and love to do that one day. Like, absolutely.
Count Sammy and I in as supporters to help you make that happen, and we would like to join you on some of your travels.
It could be like, bring a friend. Like, I bring a friend every time to a new place, and I'm like, let me show you this place. There it is. There's the concept, right?
It is.
So
I'm showing a friend the places I've been and how you do it, where to go. There we go, guys. Okay,
so you just answered my next question. My next question was, what would your niche be? How would your show be different? So I love that. I'm going to bring people to share the experiences that I've had, and
even like meet people that we've met. Cause like you said, like meeting people and learning different cultures, and the places that Jerry and I have been, we've made friends that we still keep in contact thanks to social media And, they're always like, if you ever come back, you can always like, we let's hang out again. Let me show you, if any new restaurants are here and things like that. So we love doing that. And we love meeting new people and just having friendships, or social media friendships from people across the world. And it's just such a cool thing. And we love that. We love meeting people from all over in different cultures.
You talk about those, what I call magical moments, and it's meeting those people, or it's finding that special restaurant, or whatever it may be, or, just having those interactions. And one of the cool things in looking at your Instagram, there was a picture of you with like an elephant in Thailand. And tell us about a time or two where you had those special or those magical moments, and then just about the experience.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is one of them. So elephants are my favorite animal, hands down. Like, I have clients that bring me elephant gifts all the time. So in my office, I have like a shelf of elephant like trinkets and pictures and stuff. So love elephants. So that was truly
my
one
grandma's
of the
favorite. That was my grandma's favorite animal as well. And she had many, many, many little trinkets and things like that too.
Yeah, I love getting them. I love getting them from places that we go and there's elephants, and I just kind of like to bring that back. But that was really cool. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to go to Thailand, was to visit an elephant sanctuary. And we've got to be very careful about, there's a lot of tourist traps out there and things when you're going to countries like that, but going to an actual elephant sanctuary that's helping elephants, and we got to bathe them. And you're standing next to these giant creatures. Like, it is just the most incredible feeling. And I get to share that with Jerry as well. And it was just something we will just love and remember forever, and maybe get to experience again if we ever get to go back, or I go back and take you guys for my travel show.
That's right.
2035. I don't know, but that was one magical moment. And then I think another one that was just really cool was in the Maldives, and it was the first time I went scuba diving. So I'm ruined. I can't go scuba diving anywhere else.
Right.
So that was my one and done. But just being in Maldives, scuba diving, there was a shark that came up and was swimming behind us. And it was almost like I was scared, but also like mesmerized that it was like a really big, it was like a nurse shark, but it was like a really big one, it was still terrifying. But it was just kind of also mesmerizing. You're like, oh my God, like I am in the middle of the ocean. Like, I am in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Like, I am not offshore. Like, I am in the middle of the Indian Ocean and in the middle of ocean wildlife. And then it's crazy because you're on an atoll and you walk out, 50 yards or whatever, and it just drops off and you're in the middle of the ocean. It's just a crazy sense of, and everywhere you look, you don't see anything. When you go to Mexico or you go to like, you always could see some type of, land, right? We were just in the middle of the Indian Ocean. You couldn't see anything. It was just a really cool experience.
That's awesome. I love that picture of you with the elephant. It's just because you can actually see like the connection you made, like there, just in that.
I know.
Fantastic photo.
So fun.
The next thing that I'm going to say, Joyce, isn't so much a question, but a statement. And then I just like maybe for you to expand on it.
Okay.
And so Sammy and I, in the pursuit of growth, is all about personal growth and development. And I think when most people think about how they're going to grow and improve in their lives, they probably tend to focus in on their health, maybe their professional careers, maybe it's eliminating bad habits. I don't think people often consider how they can intentionally grow experiences and how they can intentionally grow just traveling and doing those type of things. And by traveling, you don't necessarily have to go across the world. You can literally go to the next town and be able to have some of the experiences. And actually very recently at the beginning of January, about 2 weeks ago, for Sammy's 40th birthday, a group of 7 guys here in Dallas took a road trip to Central Texas for kind of like a mountain biking weekend. And we went to a place called Spider Mountain, which is actually, imagine a ski resort, but for mountain bikes. So
Oh,
It's
cool.
edge of the hill country. And so you actually get in ski lifts and you go up the mountain with your mountain bike on
With
a
your
different
bike?
lift with your bike.
Okay.
And then you basically, excuse my language, you haul ass down this
Oh my
mountain.
God.
It's one of the most intense, fun, challenging, scary, exhilarating things that I've ever had, right? In my entire life.
That sounds like it. Yeah.
It was so much fun. And when the trip was done, I just had this feeling of just euphoria of spending time with people that I love being around, having an experience that I've never had before, and just getting out of my routine. It was just such a great experience. And it just made me realize, we talk all the time, Sammy and I, about how you need to prioritize your hobbies and experiences. But quite honestly, actually going and doing something like that just emphasize how important it is. So maybe just elaborate on how traveling has been a blessing to you in your life, and what are maybe some takeaways that you've gotten from it that you've seen that have helped improve kind of the person that you are today.
Yeah, I've always had just an itch. I think the last probably, since I can remember, really, since I was a teenager, I've always wanted, well, and I'm also into astrology and I'm a Sagittarius and we're very into the travel and the wanderlust. But I really feel like it is important to take time for experiences and learning new cultures, seeing new things, and meeting new people and getting out there. I mean, in a sense of outside your city, even, like, it is so enriching to just go and learn and experience. And it also, I think, makes you realize how unique and how different we all are, and in a little sense kind of can humble you as a person when you're traveling, because there's so much out there and there's so many other people out there, and the things you learn and the things you see and the things that you meet people and you hear the things that you start talking to them and they tell you that they've been through or gone through and seen in different countries, and it's humbling too, especially us living here. Like, I just think that is so healthy, and it's great for mental health, which, I know is such a, buzzword and things like that, but it truly is. It's so rewarding and humbling, I think, would be the two things that I just think new experiences. And you don't have to have, the grandest of trips. Like you said, you could go, I didn't even know about Spider Mountain. I've never even heard of that. And you said it was like, an hour or so away.
Yeah.
And you can find little pockets like that. I mean, Martha's a cool trip, and that's a road trip you could take. That's, 8 hours on the other side of Texas. And it's so full of cool culture and restaurants and artists and just things that you don't see in Dallas. Like, you just see new things and learn new things. And it is so worth it. It's so worth it to take the time to even just take a road trip, stay one night somewhere, and just experience something new.
That's interesting, because I even going to somewhere like Fort Worth, which is just down the road from us, but it's literally a totally different culture. It's a different vibe. It's everything. And just hanging out pre-pandemic, Greg and I were there, and we were just looking at each other. We're like, why don't we do this more often? Like, it's like right.
I just went
minutes.
to the stockyards for the first time in 2018, and I've lived here all my life. I've lived in the DFW area, and I had never been to the stockyards, and that was such a cool. You could so make a day of that and learn new things and see cows walking down the street, and I mean, it's cool. It's cool.
But that was one of the things too. Is like I'm cheesing just thinking about the experience that we had at Spider Mountain, because I experienced this, and I know someone else brought this up in the group, but at the end of the day, we started at I think it was like 8:30 in the morning, and we rode that mountain until about 4:30.
Wait, any injuries? Like, that sounds like y'all might have fell off your bikes a couple.
No injuries, thank goodness. I mean, they can happen, but we were.
Joyce, it's a miracle, because it is an extreme sport, and so thank the good Lord that we all came back in one piece.
And one of the guys was saying, he goes, I don't know about you guys, but my face hurts. And we're like, what are you talking about? He goes, I have been smiling this whole time.
Oh.
And we took off our helmets, and I was like, me too. Like, I was just like, my face. And sure enough, I'm
I
on video,
know.
just, cruising
Just
around.
smiling, just so happy.
Teasing, yeah.
I mean, I think another bright side of this COVID thing and all the stuff we've had to sit back and put on hold is like we are going to enjoy things so much more moving forward. Like it's going to bring a smile on our face to go to a place we've already been just because we haven't been anywhere in so long, and to get out and do stuff with our friends. Like we are going to just have a newfound appreciation for our friends, our family, hugs, new places, and that is what I'm excited about in the aftermath of COVID, is just reappreciating everything.
Yeah, that's the right perspective. And I think that's my hope for just our country, our world, is that, we take this and we find the perspective of looking at the bright side of things, and we are grateful, for the things in our lives that just are really the foundational elements to our joy and our peace of mind. And often it's those little everyday things. It's the relationships with people. It's the experiences that we talk about. And those are the things that make life just incredible. And if you can really focus on that and have the right perspective, so many of the things that divide us, it's okay to disagree. It's okay to have conflict, but it's all about how we choose to engage in those conflicts or those disagreements. With the right perspective, it just changes everything. And Joyce, I'm jumping a little bit far ahead, but I want to just reiterate, I love how you talked about one of the things that traveling and experiences do is really humble you. And I think that's something that our world and our culture really needs right now, is more
a little humble pie
on the strength that humbleness actually gives us. So I love that you said that.
Thank you. No, I agree. I think we've just had so much compounding on top of each other that it's just, I don't think if all of these different things, like you mentioned at the very beginning, we've had such a crazy year in 2020, so much happened on top of each other. If those things happened separately, I don't think it would have been such a crazy thing, but they just all happened at the same time. And we really got challenged as a society. And the man upstairs is like, y'all need to sit down, think about what y'all are doing. Y'all gotta chill out. So I think that was the purpose in that. We are gonna find a newfound appreciation for things, and I think it'll be good. I think we'll come out even stronger.
I agree. It's a great perspective that you have there as well. And I think that a lot of people are going to have that exact same perspective. And literally, I've been taking notes here, just looking down at some of the things. And, we're at that point in the show where we'd like to kind of recap some certain things and go back through. But before we do that, we have 3 questions that we ask every single guest that has come on the show. And these aren't any brain busters by any means, but would love to get your perspective on these. So Greg, I guess I'll go first, and then you can go next. But so during your life, what has been one of your favorite actions, methods, or lessons?
One second, we're going a little slow mo on. Let's catch up. Okay, hold on.
Are we
you guys
slowing
there?
down a little bit? What's happening?
Yeah,
hold on.
We'll wait till you come back
frozen.
in. Oh no, so are you.
I'll kick back in a second.
Yeah, no worries.
So we'll jump back into the Sammy and Greg show, and we'll let Joyce sit on the sidelines.
Okay, hold on, guys. I can't hear you. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, it's slow. Everything's really slow, so I'm waiting for it to catch up.
No problem. If you can see us, I'm raising
Okay, here we go.
All right, let's see if we got
Are we back?
She has great computer drunk voice right now. It sounds like she's been drinking all show.
You guys on the question. I'm gonna do it.
Almost there.
We hear you. Okay.
All right, let's see how the perseverance goes. And you're listening to the Pursuit of Growth podcast
there
with Sammy and Greg Brinkley and our special guest Joyce Morrison. All right, how is Joyce doing? Is she back yet?
I don't think, maybe.
She's still frozen in time.
Well, the good thing is that we have this video on, so when she pops back on, it can be there. But man, I don't know about you, but so far, like I just want to go. I want to go travel. I want to go somewhere. So
Yeah.
And then we lost Joyce for a little bit. But she'll pop back in.
We'll bring her back in a minute. But one of the things that, again, I kind of want to go back to what I said a few minutes ago is there's just so much value in traveling. And I think when most people think about traveling, one of the first things that comes to their mind is, well, I don't have the money to do it. I can't afford to go and go to these really amazing places. But the reality is you can travel in your own city. You can travel in your own neighborhood. You can travel down the street. And I think what really is important about it is, are you being intentional to ask yourself, one, why is getting out of my routine day important? Why is it important to have conversations with new people, to have new experiences, whether that's down the block or the next city over, like in Fort Worth, what you talked about? And it's amazing when you actually make a priority on doing that, how, man, your life is enhanced. And I think Joyce is joining us again. But as we welcome her back, I love one of the things that she said is you just get so much perspective and humility from meeting.
Oh, here we go. There we go. You guys are back. Yay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, no. Okay. Yeah.
Joyce,
I was like trying to log in from my computer too, but okay. Phone's back. Okay.
We were lost without you. Sammy went into dad jokes for like 5 minutes.
Oh, no.
It was terrible.
Okay. I'm glad we're back. So did I miss okay. I didn't hear any of the questions. So
Okay.
Oh, that's where I lost you guys. So the three questions.
Good. 3 questions. So the very first one is that during your life, what has been one of your favorite actions or methods or lessons that you've learned in terms of self-discipline and growth?
Self-discipline and growth.
Yeah. What stuck out?
Oh gosh. Yeah. What have I learned? I think it's different for everybody. I think it's learning who you are and how you respond to your failures and learning to coach yourself in that. So, for me, I am very, very hard on myself because if it's not perfect or my vision of perfection, and, that's just kind of my personality, I get really hard on myself and I get really frustrated, and I get frustrated when other people don't do things perfect. And, I'm working on that too, because I do it to myself. So I don't have these high expectations for myself and people. And it's something that I've had to learn over my years to give grace to and give myself grace and stop wearing myself out so much and being so hard on myself. So that's something that I've definitely had to learn and am continuing to learn as I take on new ventures and, I'm learning it with the pageant. This is all new to me on the production side. So I am just learning to give myself grace and, that's all I can do.
Joyce, the second question that we have, I'm actually going to adjust it a little bit. Speaking of giving yourself grace, can you share some advice that you're actually implementing, how you're working on that? How can other people learn? Because I think that's something that many people have challenges with, is we're so hard on ourselves. So what's some advice that you could give that could help people that are struggling with that?
I think one thing I always have told myself the last few years and is anything that's meant for you will not pass you by. We cannot get so frustrated. We have ideas for ourselves and we have expectations for ourselves, and we have our whole lives planned out, right? I have a timeline. I want to do things by then, by this, and I want to, be this successful at this, but there's reasons sometimes that we fail at things. And we just don't know what that reason is. And we may not know for 6 months why we failed at that, or why we didn't have that opportunity that we just thought we were going to have. And, I just tell myself, when things don't go my way, it's because there is something coming up, and we will know sooner or later why something didn't go your way. So don't get frustrated by it now. You'll see why it didn't go your way. You didn't get this opportunity because there was another opportunity that you were supposed to be meant for, and that was supposed to be your journey. And, I relate that back to pageants. And that's what I tell people with pageants. It's like, you didn't win this year because this year wasn't right for you. You have something else that you're supposed to be doing, something else you're working on. And, maybe next year, or, maybe it's 5 years from now, but when it's meant for you, it will happen. So that's what I'm practicing. And that's what I think is helpful for a lot of people, is we don't always see why we failed or why we're not doing something perfectly, but it always comes to light.
Yeah, that's amazing advice in and of itself, just there. And the fact that you keep saying the word giving yourself grace, or then the phrase giving yourself grace.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people should remember that and take that with them too. The third question is a little bit of a twist on a classic question, but what advice would you give your future self 10 years from now? So Joyce now hops in a time machine, goes forward to Joyce 10 years from now, opens up the door and sees yourself. What advice would you give Joyce 10 years from now?
Just enjoy things more. I mean, because honestly, 99% of the things that we're worried about today are not going to matter in 10 years. I mean, they just aren't. We are going to be so far from the things we're dealing with today in 10 years. And it's, personally, and like our lives change day to day. And you just can't get so worked up about the little things, because, if it's going to affect, somebody told me something, I don't remember who, but they were like, if it's something that's going to affect your life in the next, it was a timeline, like in the next week, then you can be mad about it, for a certain period of time. But if it's not going to affect your life in 5 years, then you've got 5 minutes to be mad about it. And then you move on, because why get yourself so upset about things that just aren't even going to matter?
Absolutely.
Joyce, while you're 10 years in the future, would you mind stopping by my place, knocking on the door, and telling me the very same thing that you told yourself?
It's not going to matter in 10 years. So, we're going to be worried about the travel show, okay?
That's right.
That's what's going to matter.
We've got production schedules, right?
And
why
Joyce,
am I worried about PPE?
Years ago, I read a book that had a major impact on me as I was really at the genesis of kind of my intentional personal growth in my life. And forgive me, I can't think of the author, but the book was called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the point of the book was don't sweat the small stuff. And the reality is it's all small stuff.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And he talks about what you just mentioned. Is like, look, a week in the future, is this going to matter? What about 3 years in the future? What about 5 years in the future? Why are you ruining your today for something that's not going to matter, down the road? So I think that's a wonderful point that you made. Yeah. So Joyce, now in my opinion, this is my favorite part of the whole show. This is where Sammy and I look at the pages of notes that we've taken from our conversation. And it's actually the hardest part of the show, because we pick 3 takeaways that we appreciated from this conversation. So we always fight over who goes first and who goes second. Sammy, do you want to lead off today, or do you want to go second? What are you feeling?
You go first. I've gone first more times than you have, so I'll pass it.
You probably have. So this is the hard part of all this that I have written down. What do I take? But I'm going to start with your motto that you mentioned earlier, and I love this: mask on and move on. Mm-hmm. And I really hope that as a world, as a community, as people, we adapt that, because again, we made this comment earlier in the show that trials are opportunities if you choose to view them this way. And that doesn't mean to be reckless, to be foolish, but I think it's look at the challenge in your life and figure out how to overcome it. And I just love that short, sweet motto: mask on, put your armor on, and move on. I absolutely love that.
And get your mask from Joyce.
And if you need that mask,
we'll make sure in the show notes. We'll include your website. There you go, double mask, right?
Yes.
The second thing that I love that you said, and I think it has a much bigger context than even how you mentioned it today. But when we were talking about travel, you mentioned talk to someone who's been there. Mm-hmm. And Joyce, that is advice to every important area of our life that we do not take advantage of, is talk to people that have been there. Don't feel like you've got to blaze this path solely on your own. Don't be so prideful that you won't accept the help of others. And that's an area that I've struggled with throughout my life, is feeling like it was a weakness to ask help from others. And what a foolish way to live my life. And as I learn more humility, and as I really adopt that as a strength, talking to people that have been there has been one of the major benefits and blessings of my life. So when you said that, I got chills and wrote that down. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I think we talked a lot about that in our first podcast, and how we should be looking for mentors in all aspects of our life, and not be ashamed. So yeah, so we did talk a lot about that. And
it's who
still truly believe that, and it's still strong.
Yeah, it's who can be our mentors and who can we turn around to be mentors for. And I think that's so important. And then I've got literally 8 or 9 things starred that I could share, but I'm going to let Sammy have some good ones. But you know what? I'm going to go with one that's a little bit funny, but man, there's so much truth in it. Don't always trust Google. And I think I can take it to a bigger standpoint and substitute Google for social media, online tech companies, just what people have to say is just do your due diligence. And don't just take what you read or what you hear as gospel. Take some time to explore it and make sure that it's correct. So absolutely love that you mentioned that. So Sammy, those are my 3. Now over to you.
That's great. Yeah, you only stole all of mine. No, I'm just kidding. I think number 1 is we were talking earlier about keep looking at it as a learning experience. I think whenever you found those challenges and, jumping into the industry now as a different mindset. So I loved that. And that's something that we look to do with the Pursuit of Growth. That's kind of what it's all about. Something that you actually said twice, in just a different way, which I think solidifies the fact that you really do believe it, is that learn to laugh it off. When you were in that band in the recliners with the curtains back, learn to laugh it off. And then later on, you said you enjoy things more, like that's what you were talking about, that was the advice you were going to give yourself. So that's why I think it was a nice play off that. And then lastly, one of the big one was learn who you are and learn to coach yourself. You mentioned that, and I always mess this up, the Enneagram.
The Enneagrams. Yeah.
I always say it wrong. So
that was one thing I learned during quarantine. I took the Enneagram test. Have you guys done that?
I haven't.
No, can you explain a little bit what that is?
Yeah, so it's a pretty it's a long test, and then it takes like a 20 or 30 minutes. So you got to have some time to sit down and go through a test. But it is this test, and you answer questions of how you would react to things and what you would do. And it's pretty comprehensive. And then it tells you, based on your answers, like how you function and what type of personality you are. And you can get really deep into it. I now follow like all these Enneagram accounts on Instagram, and they like analyze, and I'm like, yeah, that's me. I'm a 1. I knew it before I took the test. I said, I'm a 1. Yeah. I was like, one of my friends was saying like, well, 1 is this, a 2 is this, a 3 goes to 9. And I was like, I'm a 1. I already know it. I don't have to take the test. But it's a fun thing to do. And it's a fun thing to kind of chat about with people that have done it and their Enneagrams, and you can kind of wing with another Enneagram. And it's kind of pretty fascinating. It's kind of like one of those, like, you do the astrology things and an Enneagram, but this is kind of based off of a test that's done and how you would react. So yeah, I challenge y'all to find y'all's Enneagram.
I was about to say, Greg and I feel our group working session. Greg and I will take it and report back our numbers.
Okay. Yeah, and that's similar, Joyce. Sammy and I have both been in a Vistage coaching group, and over the last couple of years, we've taken what's called the DISC assessment profile, and then the Gallup's Strength Finder, which is they're different in the way they kind of go about things, but they're similar. And they report back extremely comprehensive information in terms of how you respond and act in certain scenarios, where your strengths are, how you relate to people. And I'll admit that I was very apprehensive before taking these tests. And it is shocking when you read them back to go, wow, this is so, they nailed me like to a point. But then what also is interesting is they present to you your blind spots and things that you're like, you know what? I don't like to think about myself this way, but that's the truth. And what can I maybe do to either not have that become such a weakness to where it causes problems in my relationships or my work.
That's right.
But then again, how can I also not stress over it? Maybe who are other people I can bring into my life that can help me in this area that's weak. And so it's such a valuable tool to have. So I'll absolutely take that test. I think that'll be fun to explore and see what type of outcomes I get from that particular test.
Yeah. And it's good, I think, too, when you start learning other people's Enneagram and you read on the other Enneagrams on how those people are. Like, you know, I have friends that are a 2 or a 3, and like I can read
and how
on
you
like
interact with them, right?
How they interact and how how they understand things. And it just, you know, it's all part of growth and growing into like how to communicate better and just network with people. And it's a good thing.
I love it. Well, Joyce, this is the best part of the show, I know, from a promotion standpoint. So we like to give you the stage. For you to promote anything and everything you want. You know, tell people where to find it and tell people how to get the information.
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal Instagram, I'm a big Instagram person. So you can just follow me at Joyce _ Morrison. From there in my profile, you can find the Texas International page. And that's a brand new page that has just started. And that goes to all the pageant information. So that'll link our website and our event where you can get tickets, where you can learn to be a contestant, sponsor, all that fun stuff is on that Instagram through my personal page. And then to learn more about me, Joyce-Morrison.com. My website kind of just has all kinds of things about who I am, the businesses that I have, and the philanthropy that I've done, and, you know, partnerships that I've done. So
That's
just
awesome.
send me a DM or an email, and I'd love to chat.
Well, I can share from personal experience that Joyce is one of the better Instagram accounts to follow. So I encourage everybody to jump on there. It's just you just post things that just make people smile, and it's very, very, very cool. So kudos to you. And then from a personal standpoint, just so appreciative of your support of Vogel Alcove, of Sammy and myself as we've launched this pursuit of growth. And you know, our mission to really bring self-development and encouragement to the masses. You're an amazing person. You're an amazing friend. And we're so grateful that we've had you back on now for the second time. So just be prepared that we're going to have you on for the third as we get through this crazy year of 2021.
I know. We just keep checking in with ourselves and see where we are. I'm excited to see where you guys take the pursuit of growth. And I know we've talked a little bit about some of your ideas. So I'm very excited and here to support you guys as well on this new venture.
We've got a lot of things going on. And so now time for our shameless plug. If you want to learn more about the pursuit of growth, you can go to our website, which is www.livetpg.com, where you can read our blog. You can watch other episodes of the Pursuit of Growth show, like the one that you've just seen with Joyce Morrison. And you can buy the book, The Pursuit of Growth, which literally will make all your dreams come true.
Yes.
That's all it is. But one last time,
I've bought
Joyce,
it. I just haven't read it. I bought it. I just, it's on my counter. I just haven't read it. So I owe that to you guys.
It's time to read it, Joyce. It's going to change your life. Love it. Well, once again, Joyce, thanks so much. This has been so much fun. And man, it's just always great to chat with you.
So good to catch up with you guys and chat with you too, and talk all the things like business and growth. And I'm excited and look forward to the next time.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. 2-time champ right here.
Hey.
Joyce Morrison.
All right. Yes.
First returning guest. So with that, we'll sign off. And
all right. See you later.